Welcome to Feedback Friday, everybody. This is where Tim, Katie, and I talk about portfolios, resumes, and Lord of the Rings music. Feel free to paste in your portfolio or resume into the chat. We will take a look at that. We'll invite you to the stage to talk about it, learn some context about you, and then diagnose what your goals are and how the design artifacts you're choosing to share assists with that particular goal. We've got a myriad of folk already on the list today, so we may not be able to get you today, but we do this every Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Seattle time, Arizona time, for the moment anyway.
And we might be pushing that back a little bit in the future. Just a heads up.
We'll take a look at that, yeah. We are also live streaming on YouTube and recording on YouTube. So what that means for you, that means A, you can come back, take a look at everything we say at a later date, which is great. But also B, anything you share with us is going to be streamed and publicized to the larger public. So if you want to share your resume, just know that any sensitive data on there, like your phone number, will be shared. So feel free to remove stuff from your resume before sharing it with us. Totally okay. Tim, Katie, any housekeeping things that I'm forgetting to talk about?
I can't think of it. Nope. But when we invite you onto the stage, if you'll go ahead and share a little bit about who you are, what type of designer you are, any of your goals, give us as much context about yourself as you can. And that will help us help you, because our goal today is not to roast anyone, is not to make people feel uncomfortable. It is not to criticize or call out. It is just to help everyone in the community go to the next level and reach some of their goals with their portfolios and their resumes as helpful and, offering the expertise that we have to you.
And I will say we do this first come, first serve. So the earlier that you can get here for these events and drop your, portfolio or resume or whatever into the chat, the better, the more likely we'll see it. And then if you want to come back next week, just get here early. Because I think you said, Nate, we're at capacity, right?
Most likely, yeah. It depends if people stick around and how fast we can go through things. But the list is currently at 8, I believe, which might be, if we get through all of them, that might be a record for us.
Well, I was going to say, I think we're ready to start, but our first portfolio, I just opened it up and I think it actually is not just password gated, but is like actually product gated. This looks like it's just a SaaS website login that I'm not.
Yeah. So this is Ebony. They did post a password in the chat for us to use, but no username. But I agree with you. This doesn't look like a lock to the portfolio. It looks like it's a lock to something else.
I'll invite Ebony to the stage, I guess. So you can share a little bit about your actual portfolio. Keep in mind, though, if this is not a portfolio, we will probably move on to the next person because we don't actually do product reviews.
Actually, looks like we're... Oh, hello.
Hey. Yeah, so I was here last week and...
First try, Ebony. We nailed it. First try.
I know. It's so funny because I'm using the same device and headphones that I used first time last week, and now it's working. I don't know. So yeah, let me send you the right link. I just realized it just shared the logging in instead. So there you go. That's the right one.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then Tim, if you scroll way up to the very top, the password's up there somewhere.
There you go. So it's just my resume. Because I talked to you, Nate, before, and you said that you didn't really have much feedback on my portfolio. So you said you to look at my resume, which I didn't have at the time, but I have it now. So, yay!
Excellent. Tim, is that password working for you?
It is. I'm in. I have it open right now. Ebony, while Nate, in an old man style, fixes some of his tech problems because it's working on my machine, which means that it's definitely his machine problem. Can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you are, like what kind of designer you are, what kind of market you're in, maybe any specialties or niches that you focus on, and then what some of your goals are. For example, are you looking to get hired right now? Are you freelancing? Are you trying to get discovered on a network? And then, yeah, we'll go from there.
Right. Sorry, I forgot to do that first. So my name is Ebony, and I've just graduated a degree with illustration. So I am an illustrator. At the moment, I'm trying to create a roadmap of what I want to do, but I want to try many different things like freelancing or going straight into a job, or just working on my portfolio and finding my niche, because I don't seem to have one. I think that's all the questions, I believe.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of work have you done in the past?
So mainly the work I've done in the past is just editorials that I've received from university. Along with I did some 3D modeling as well, and I actually enjoyed it, and I kind of want to continue with 3D modeling. Along with comics and designs, which I'm not the best at, but I still want to continue making comics because it's really fun. And I just want to try everything. So it's really hard right now for me, but I've been trying to apply for jobs, but I haven't been able to get into the interview stage. So I'm thinking it's either my portfolio or my resume, and that's what I came here to get some feedback on, please.
Okay. Okay. I'll give you, we can do that. Let's talk about this stuff today and about getting you out of this, the application phase to your interview phase so you can talk with people, which probably means that we'll need to focus on helping your resume pass the ATS level and also any initial like applicant gates. When you think about like the application process from like getting a job, there are different audiences along the way who you have to interact with. And one is going to be like automation systems like the ATS, and also recruiters like HR level people who are basically doing like they're part of like the staffing of a company. They kind of filter you out before they send you into people who might recognize your talent more, such as other designers or other professionals who are going to be on the team that you work with. And then that even goes farther to like an HR level interview where people are like, does this person actually meet our needs for our business? Does this person have the right kind of culture fit? So when we look at your resume today, I actually took a screenshot of it because I can see that you are blocking out your phone number here. But if you click on here, the block goes away. So I'm just going to look at it from the screenshot so we don't blast your phone number to the whole world.
Thank you. When you guys said that at the start, I was like, oh no. So I had to quickly block out my phone number, but it didn't work when I zoom in. So it's like,
this will be okay. Nate, do you want to say anything before we jump into, or Katie as well? Katie's always on mute, lurking, but super wise, sage words.
I don't have anything. I like to lurk though.
I've got all kinds of things to talk about here. Ebony, first off, stoked that you're hopping in for the very first person here. It's always scary going first, and you're diving in to the deep end on this one. So Tim was talking about certain audiences, ATS, hiring managers. We may also throw recruiters and recruiters and potential peers in there as well, depending on the context. Tell me what application you designed this in. There are a couple of high-level things, but I think the application is going to negotiate some of this.
So the application I used to create my CV was on Word, Microsoft Word.
Okay, yeah. Interesting. That's typically I usually recommend Word and Google Docs. Both of those are kind of a bummer, I know, but for ATS purposes, those are effective. Are you familiar with the term ATS and what it is and how it works?
I believe so. It's I can't remember what it stands for. I know tracking systems in it, but the A I forgot.
Yeah, and ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System. Let me give a high-level overview for all the other folks on the call. The objective with an ATS is to negotiate the relationships of candidates applying to a particular organization. So when most people talk about ATS, what they're actually meaning to talk about is the auto filtration that comes into play, but it's important to know that ATSs are much grander than that. Every organization has an ATS, and then it's about how much of the capability of that ATS does the organization use. Every time you apply for a company, that application goes in an ATS, and then in a year from now, HR can look you up, see what they interacted with, how they interacted with you, what process you went through, how many interviews you had, things like that. So now let's steer the conversation directly into the auto filtration, the ability for an ATS to parse your resume and then ideally narrow down the candidates based on this automation. And now that's what we're trying to strive for and solving for in looking at your resume. couple of things working against you at the moment. The big one is that your resume in its current state is an image. Is that intentional, or is that just the representation that Tim and I have for the moment?
That's just a representation that you guys have at the moment, because on the website,
Perfect.
I'm still trying to look at how to make visitors download my resume. And I don't know why it's not working. So I'm working on that still.
One
Nice,
of the
okay. And I'm
easiest
hearing-
solutions to that, by the way, is to host it on Google Docs and have it a public viewable link, and then you just have the link out from your portfolio, and it'll open in that Google Doc PDF reader format.
Thank you so much.
Am I hearing that you typically have this saved in a PDF format that you then provide to applications?
Yes. So
Perfect.
usually, yeah, I think usually on the websites, they'd be like, upload your CV, and I just use that.
Yeah. And have you, as you've gone through these applications, are you discovering that the application is auto-filling out correctly, or is it not working super well?
I think it's doing it correctly. I haven't noticed anything weird.
Great. Yeah. So that is parsing in that's a parse of some kind. So if that auto filling in is working at least to some degree, we know that your resume, at least at a minimum, is readable to some degree, which is all good news. And that's primarily why Tim and I and Katie and the rest of the world recommend Google Docs or Microsoft Word, as much of a bummer as they are. Cool. So image is great. Let's talk about the importance of sections and the order in which sections should appear. So in general, we start resumes with what we believe are the most important, most impactful things that present you in a good light. And for most folk, that's going to be the experience section, by far the most important section for most people's resumes. However, you are a recent grad, and because your experience is going to be less obtainable than other candidates, I can see why you're leaning more toward like projects and your About Me section first at the very top. The About Me section. This is an interesting section. I've chatted with HR folk and hiring managers and recruiters before to challenge this section. And the rhetoric that I have received back is that About Me sections at the very top, usually useless because they are typically subjective in nature. So let's take a look at your About Me section and see if we can find any subjectivity in there. Ebony Gibbs is an artist who creates artworks with a story to tell, either with traditional mediums such as acrylic and ink or digitally with Photoshop and Procreate. So far, that's an objective sentence. That's just factual information about you. Mm-hmm. Ebony creates to inspire and express emotion. Ebony had amazing opportunities to collaborate with art directors and travel to different studios across the world to learn more about the creative industries and the skills of art. Ebony is a creative beast who is hungry for knowledge and inspiration, someone who is never bored of learning and creating. So in regard to objectivity, it's actually not bad. In regard to the value, I would argue that this About Me section in its current state is less valuable than your current experience. It's currently a distraction from what I would argue is the most important section of your resume. How are you feeling about removing the About Me section altogether?
I guess so. I feel like I'm just repeating myself because I already, for example, in LinkedIn, it's kind of there already. Yeah, and yeah, I kind of thought it was more like my interest. Well, not really my interest, but I don't mind removing it if that makes it better.
I think it makes it better. Tim, Katie, any challenges with that?
I wonder, and maybe you can answer this, Nate, if this creates some kind of like individuality, like is there value in like that aspect?
Yeah, differentiation of some kind.
Yeah.
About Me sections can be used for differentiation, exposing why you're unique from that of other candidates. The hurdle is the current About Me section isn't currently doing that. You could potentially, it's creating differentiation in the sense that it's talking about you and your skill sets, but those skill sets aren't different from that of other candidates applying for visual artistry jobs of some kind. Is that making sense, Ebony?
Yeah, I understand. So it's
I would...
about me. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
I was just thinking. So About Me is mainly about, because I always thought about my interests for About Me. So I said like I love to learn. That's my main interest. Then talking about like what I like what I'm capable of more.
One thing I would say is that this might be a little bit counter to what Kate and Nate were kind of mentioning a little bit, but I actually see resumes more often as not the place for like personal differentiation. It's more about like your credentials. And so this is a place for you to outline like what your skills are, what your impacts are, but not necessarily to have like a bunch of personality. I know the temptation is we want to design everything for human eyes, but the ATS is largely non-human. Even though it is trained on human data, which is a weird thing to think about, but um, in this case, even having this like about me section does consume a certain amount of real estate on here, and even injecting like personality things about you may distract from the resume's function of focusing on the more professional aspect of you. Your personality stuff and your like differentiation items should probably live mostly on your portfolio. The portfolio is where you to visually express yourself, and those portfolios where the humans are going to spend most of their time. I've even been in roles where you submit your resume, or actually you never even do submit a resume, or people review your resume like months after you've been hired, just as like essentially bookkeeping, but never like I just don't see the use case of an about me section that is about explaining who you are as a person. One, being effective enough to capture your personality without any sort of visual skills, and being valuable compared to spending more time on something like focusing your freelance Illustrator work and making these bullet points much more valuable and high impact compared to what they already are.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I agree with that actually.
So my feedback would actually be, alongside with Nate, I would probably remove this about me section, but I'm curious about why you are targeting a visual artist as your role here, which is great. People, put the name of the role that you're looking for when you apply, and make sure that if you're submitting a resume for a job, that the name you're submitting your resume for is the same name that's on, or at least very, very close to the same name on your resume. There's no way to like get outed faster than to apply for a graphic design position and for it to say something more of like web design or something like that, where it's not like the same role or doesn't match titles. But you're targeting this role, a visual artist, an illustrator type role, and you actually have as your first experience, you're a retail assistant. And I'm curious, what decision led you to put this here first?
Well, I think when I talked to my well, they're not lecturers, but they were like for this workshop at university, advisors, I guess. And they told me that you need to put your most recent and current job first, like it's in chronological order. So I continue to work at Wimbledon right now. So I just thought maybe I'll just keep it there because it's the current job I have.
That is a dilemma. I'm of the opinion that I think your resume would be a lot stronger if this freelance illustrator work was the very first experience here. But I am curious, Nate, what you would suggest here, since this is her current ongoing role.
Really torn on this one. I'm in a similar mindset where if I were reading your resume, I would want to know more about the adjacent experience that you have first than the not adjacent. Adjacent is the wrong word. The direct experience you have in the industry before I would want to know the other stuff. I don't know for sure. I'd be open to challenge on this. I am leaning toward Tim's idea of putting your freelance illustration first, with the idea of either taking retail and moving it second, or removing it from the applicant, or moving it from the resume entirely. I don't think removing it's the strong case, just because your experience is limited as it is. But that's where my mindset is currently at.
I also kind of want to suggest.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Just really quick, I also would maybe suggest, like, is there any way that you could pick up like some new freelance projects or something to add to, because then that way you could have.
As in like working with other companies, or just
Just really
client?
any project, honestly. I mean, so for me, I had the same issue on my resume as well. Like I have a retail job that I worked for very long, and I always got the feedback to remove it. So I eventually did remove it. And one of the hurdles that I had to removing it was, well, what else do I have? So I kind of, hit up whoever I could, and like friends or whatever, and anybody that had like maybe a small business or something, and I just took on these like small UX projects. So I'm wondering if like maybe that could be something that you could do as well, just to add to it.
So basically, I could like volunteer and then add that experience into my CV.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. I also wanted to keep it because I think it shows my strengths with my soft skills, with communication and like working in a team as well.
You may want to A/B test it. And what I mean by that is you may need to build out both versions of this. Like there's a version of this where I see that you've already focused your retail assistant on bullet points that are very focused towards design space and like kind of migrating them away. So you are focusing on soft skills a lot, which is a great way to reframe this. That's like absolutely what you should be doing. But you may want to test and see like, well, what does it look like if I switch these around and I apply to a job? Do I get more traction on that? What if I have another resume version where I remove it? We will leave all those things to you. We will leave all that in your hands. Obviously, this is your portfolio. Before we move on, I want to talk about your freelance illustrator work though, and your experience here, and how to possibly strengthen this section, because I think we all agree that whether or not you do remove or keep this retail assistant, there's still opportunities with your freelance illustrator section and kind of improving this and making it a little bit more, just kind of adding a little bit more sauce to it and making it a little bit bigger and more prominent. Because if you keep the retail assistant, that's fine, but you should still add more content here to your freelance illustrator room, especially because the About Me section might go away and you'll have all that extra room to talk about your freelance work here as an illustrator.
Okay. I mean, I have multiple projects as well, so I could add those too as well if I do remove my About and retail.
Yeah, that's great. I would add those projects in too. What a great solution.
Okay, right.
Tim, how do you feel about repositioning projects away from projects and more into freelance? As in, we can talk about all those individual products or projects, but I don't want to segment them by project. I want to add them all under the freelance section.
You can absolutely do that. I would say either way, make sure that you set yourself up for success, which is to say, when you are focusing on some of this experience done here, I don't think you need to be careful about how you use the freelance word. If you inject freelance in your job title here, it may diminish and set the framing up for this not being as impactful as you'd like it to be. If you're looking for other freelance roles, keeping freelance in the title does make sense. If you're not looking for freelance roles, though, maybe you want to go in as a full-time employee somewhere, you want to be part of a corporate world, having freelance in here might do you a disservice. Additionally, you have this label here for university project, and that already like frames this to be like, yes, this was just a university project. I didn't do any real work or anything to it, which is completely fake because you did a ton of work with this, and it is a real project. So I would remove the university project language. I might remove this freelance language here. I would instead make this more, I would lean into kind of advertising the type of illustrator you were here, especially if you're aiming for these visual artist stuff. So you'd be like illustrator and visual artist. You can kind of tie that together if these are the job titles that you're looking for. Maybe you could go more like graphic illustrator if you're leaning to the graphic design world, etc. Those are the type of job titles you want. And then down here, as I'm looking at your bullet points, you have stuff about designing, research, 3D modeling, post-productions. I typically see segments like this in the skills sections, and I'm a little surprised to see them under your job title section. It doesn't mean it's not a good strategy. It's just not a strategy I'm accustomed to seeing. Did you intentionally choose this model? And if you did choose this model intentionally, can you tell me more about that choice?
So I had to do that module actually at university, and I don't know. I just chose to like say designing, researching, 3D modeling because I thought it'd be like easier for the people who are looking at my CV to see how I strategize each part of the process of making my work so that they can see the skills as well as knowing what the project's about.
Okay. Typically, the way I recommend writing bullet points under a job is under this is the same way you would see it on a job like posting. So if you look at a job posting and it's got sentence case or written case, like it's written in sentences, I would write same kind of sentences. I even use the same tense. So it says like creating a cover illustration. So I might say create a cover illustration. I would use stuff on that of that regard, right? So those are my recommendations. And the thing is that you're like splitting hairs sometimes a little bit here, but I always recommend it. So I'm consistent. My recommendations are consistent. Just know that this may help you. It may not help you. But when you have your experience more closely match the job postings and the way job applications are written, it helps people who might review it. It also helps the ATS system lead a bit of a better match. It also kind of can speak a little bit to the kind of the way that they're looking for. I also think that when you write out in sentences a little bit differently this, so like you're segmenting like your design here, it becomes a little bit harder in my opinion to attach the impact, which the impact is what you really want to focus on. And so I would rewrite almost all of these to reframe the outcome, which you've attached in some cases towards the end here. And I would put that outcome at the front of your sentence, or at least much closer to the front of the sentence. And if you have more outcomes you can talk about or speak about more of those outcomes, I would put more there. But otherwise, this feels like it feels just like a very small section. And the emphasis is so much on the designing, research, 3D modeling, post-production. I'm having a hard time even like capturing the outcome of each of these areas, but I'm sure there's a great outcome.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, in
Okay,
regard to the
thank you so
bullets,
much.
I love what Tim is describing here. In regard to the bullets, I think this is probably your largest area of improvement, disregarding the fact that this is an image. So it sounds like that's not a problem. The bullets should talk about your achievements and wins at an organization. And at the moment, it seems like it's leaning more toward the process that you go about utilizing, and that's okay. But the wins and achievements, if you can talk more about that, that's going to provide far more impact and value for your resume.
Oh, okay, I see. So then if I was to rewrite this, I would just have like just maybe a sentence or two talking about my process and then the bullet points about my achievements and the outcomes.
Let's do an example real fast. Last week, were you able to, I remember you were in and out with technical difficulties. Did you hear us talking about the what, how, why approach, or the why, how, what approach to writing bullets?
I briefly heard about that, but because I was fixing my stuff, I can't remember exactly everything. But I do remember you mentioning about it.
Let's review it real fast, and then I'm looking at the clock, and we'll probably have to scoop the next one after that.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at your very last bullet point there on a freelance. After receiving feedback from the art director, improvements and changes attained the best outcomes that completed the project to 100%. So let's take that bullet and let's see if we can turn it into a why, how, what approach. And if you follow a why, how, what approach, really bad to write a bad bullet point, really hard to write a bad bullet point. So why you did it is to complete a project to 100%. How you did it is not currently listed. And then what you did is improvements and changes attained, improvements and changes. So if we were to rewrite this and follow a why, how, what approach, we would say something like, completed a project to 100% by, and I need to know more about your
illustrating,
process.
I guess.
Yeah, but for the what, for the how. By illustrating and managing a particular team of people, what, to create a particular web design that maximized value, blah, 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 something like that. But if we follow a why, how, what approach, really hard to write a bad bullet. Is that making sense? I ran through it real fast and did not provide the best example. Is that making sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Thank you.
Ebony, there's more to talk about in regard to your resume. I'm looking at the clock. Are you able to join us another time and talk more about your resume so we can take a look at your changes and then continue on?
Yeah, of course. Question as well. Because I know that you guys mainly look at, I think, UI, UX stuff. So you wouldn't really look at my portfolio because I'm an illustrator So, are you able to look at my portfolio still, or do you just want to focus mainly on my resume?
Timing
There-
wise,
Yeah, we won't. We try to limit each review to either resume or portfolio. And so next week, if you want to come, we can talk more about resume or we can talk more about your portfolio. There are certain principles that apply broadly to the internet, and those principles apply because we're all humans who use the internet. Surprise, everyone's a human. And so there's like certain psychological and layout things that matter and are consistent, but there's also going to be probably some details and things that we won't be able to speak to. As long as you're comfortable coming to us and saying, I might not get the hyper specific expertise feedback that I would like, and I'm okay getting some of the generic, more general feedback, we can absolutely give you that feedback and we will not turn you away.
Okay. I like that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And nice being here, the pit bean. But thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. We are going to move forward.
Thank you so much.
Next.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I appreciate the time. Next up, we've got R. R, I just sent you a request to chat. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing well, man. I appreciate you being here. Tell us more about who you are and what your goals are for this call.
Sure. So my name is Romit Sode, and a few weeks ago, I approached with my portfolio to provide a feedback on my case study. And I took some time and reflected on making some changes. And here we are, fast forward to where I'm trying to showcase one of my case studies. My goal is that I want to know that whether this case study structure is making sense. Are there any elements that are missing? I'm looking for a senior product designer role or above. And if the structure is making sense, then I want to replicate it for like further case studies, future case studies basically that I want to build.
Perfect. Go ahead and remind me just really quickly what type of designer you are, and then the market that you're hoping this case study will speak to. That is this intended for like what kind of corporation? Is this intended to like get freelancers? Who are you hoping that this case study will directly appeal to?
Okay. The kind of designer I am, I actually, again, I'm a senior product designer, so I definitely do product designing. I have a background in coding as well, and I have done product management in that, so I have experience in three areas. The kind of companies that I am trying to approach to are B2B companies or B2C. But majorly my case studies are more into the first area. And the areas of the domains that I have worked across are e-commerce, manufacturing, advertising, healthcare, education. At the moment, what you're seeing right now is more focused towards e-commerce.
Very cool. Very cool. Nate, where do you want to start with this? Or Katie,
So I
where do you want to start with
appreciate-
this?
Yeah, I appreciate that we're looking directly to case study. You linked us right to the case study, not the portfolio. Am I hearing that you don't need to look at the rest of the portfolio today, just this particular case study?
Yes, because I have I remember the feedback that you like all three of you have provided to me, and my homepage sucks at the moment, so it's not at that stage anywhere. However, I feel like this case study is somewhere I feel a little bit comfortable, but I'm expecting that there are going to be some feedback which I need to reconsider.
Sure. Okay. First off, case study looks great. I'm excited to talk about this one. I don't remember exactly what we talked about last time, nor do I remember what the case study looked like last time, but you're doing a lot of stuff well and correctly here. So just scrolling down from the top, I really appreciate your starting with housekeeping. Really awesome for recruiters, just the ability to see like what your role was, what the company was. Love that you're depicting impact at the very top here as well. The team, if you feel like continuing with the housekeeping stuff, you've got images under the team section. and those images are just avatars. If you wanted to put like developer or senior product designer or like whoever those roles were, they would be more valuable for the recruiter. But outside of that, moving down, typically looking for 3 questions to solve. What's the problem you're trying to solve? How did you solve that problem? And then how did you measure success that the problem was solved? Right away, you're starting with what's the problem? And I super appreciate that you're talking about it so quickly. Brand managers lacked hourly visibility, leading to wasted spend and reactive decision making. You're doing a bunch of things right here. You're starting with the problem. You're also talking about you're adding a lengthy title to a particular paragraph, knowing that folks that skim your case study, they will skim and read your titles and likely not much of the rest. And you're telling that story in your titles. Love that you're doing that. And then your imagery to text ratio, I think, is great. It's visually impactful. It visually story tells some of the stuff that you've worked on. I think you're doing a lot of stuff correctly here. One section I think I'm missing is the how you went about solving this problem. And I say this without having read through the verbiage just yet, but I think you're doing well at spotlighting what is the stuff that you've worked on and why it's effective, but I'm not sure how you got here just yet. I see the strategy builder section. Is the strategy builder section, is that the solution to the problem?
Yes, there are 2 solutions to that problem.
Got it. Are you able to talk more about, so what I'm missing is, as a senior product designer, I'm missing the process by how you obtained this information and that this direction was the correct momentum for the solution. So I'm looking for things like, what research did you do? How did you break down the business goals into smaller pieces? How did you come about what priorities to focus on and which things to sacrifice? Like some of that process by which you focused the solution of the application. Are you able to talk more about that process?
Yes, I actually had built that earlier, but and I was reviewing like one of those YouTube videos like by FameK Design, and she was saying that like it's important to show case study as a showcase rather than like just sharing everything. And that struck me that okay, like if I'm going to come up with a case study, the 3 things that matters to me is problem, solution, impact. And that's why like I removed actually the
Got it. Okay, understood. The feedback that your case study should be more of a showcase, I think, is accurate for positions that are tactical in nature. So not to throw UI designers under the bus, but UI designers are typically more output oriented than strategy oriented. So for UI designers, I would expect their case study to be more presentation focused. If your goal is to target senior product design, I would love to read more about your process by which you managed a particular product team and guided that product team through a solution. Much more interested in the how process than the final solution. In fact, like if I were to rank the priorities, I would put the output that you created, I would give that like a 2 out of 10 importance, and your process like a 9 out of 10 importance.
I have
Dive in
additional
there, Tim.
feedback for you, Ramit. When you land on this page right away, the first thing that we're seeing is this image series up here. And I don't want to hurt any feelings, but when I look at this image series, it takes me a lot of cognitive effort to figure out what I'm looking at exactly and trying to ID it. And I think that this is a big disservice to people who are landing on your page and don't know what they're looking at right away. This adds a lot of confusion for me. I don't understand quickly enough what exactly you're trying to show me. But when I come down here, this is an excellent like landing section. This is a very good title sequence. You have your impact right up front. You are giving enough context to then set the stage for all the storytelling. And notably, there's no other image series that looks like this splash top part. And I'm curious, is this an artifact of maybe the way it used to look? Is this part of like a new look that you're going for? Why is this image up here?
Yeah, I resonate with your feedback. I had the same question, and I wanted to test this, whether this will work or not. Like I was confused at whether, so it's not an artifact, but it is a way that I wanted to show that if someone sees those two images, immediately it should pop up that, oh, like, okay, this is Amazon, then this is connected to, the product design that I've done. So some kind of correlation I wanted to build. And the other thing was that I wanted to check that whether if I swap the content over the image, then how would that look like? So at this moment, what you're seeing is like kind of an A/B testing of whether I should like first consider the text or like I should consider the image, because this again comes from the portfolio that I used to refer to.
Gotcha. Well, I am of the mindset that this UI, let me see if the pen will work today. It doesn't always work. Okay. I'm of the mindset that, oh, I don't think it's working. This,
Why isn't your pen working?
I don't know. It is like this sometimes. Oh, okay. Wow.
It's working-ish. We all have our days.
We're just going to close that. This image on the right, the festive season strategy, the actual UI of the product that you're talking about, doesn't deliver any value here. It doesn't really show an out pack. You haven't framed me to expect anything with this yet. And it's a lot of visual noise. I don't think that this is an effective screen to show here. I do think that your storytelling over here of this being part of a 4.6 million sales, something related to this, is a good storytelling hook, because you're telling me to focus on this and that somehow you have ownership over this mechanism. But I would take this image and maybe scale it or do something to it so I could factor in either the left side of this or the right side of this title section here, because this is the framing of telling me that you do this thing, and then this is the visual artifact that supports that story. But I think by itself, this image sequence, I am more comfortable saying that even if you were to do this image after this header section, I think it is just stronger if you were just to delete it.
Your delete button's clearly working.
The delete button is clearly working. Kind of.
I see. So do you mean that like I should just directly start with the case study title itself and then let it flow till the solution side?
Yeah, so you're familiar with the trust ladder, right?
Trust ladder, yes.
Yeah, so I think when you're talking about your trust ladder, you need to do enough to convince me to care about your case study. Showing me an image like this, where I'm kind of left on my own to make sense or interpret this, doesn't tell me why to care about it enough. There's not enough here that tells me and helps me understand what I'm looking at. And I'm not willing to commit the effort to understanding this image. In fact, I may spend more time on your website incidentally looking at this because I'm trying to understand what exactly this means. And it kind of feels, it ends up feeling a little bit like a gotcha, or even like very junior level, because of the way this UI is not like really beautiful. Sorry, I don't know if you built this UI, but it's not super beautiful to look at. It's not super pretty. It's very noisy. And it is kind of like this generic kind of browser floating bar. Like there's not a lot of beauty to behold here, even though it is communicating a value. I just don't know what that value is. I don't have any context for it. I'm not being framed well for it. And so this is a much stronger. This is honestly like a way stronger hook. And then if you want to add visual elements to it, which you should, visuals are really good. You should bring in visuals that are anchored by some of the value in the storytelling that you're doing. But I wouldn't, I don't know, maybe I'm like, maybe this is crazy of me to say. Maybe I'm going way out on a limb and no one agrees with me on that, but that's where I am at.
I see. No, I think that's a very, very great feedback. Actually, like, so this screen is something which I designed, like the one that you're seeing on the right. It like took a lot of iteration. The other question that I had was like, do you think adding process, would that make it lengthy, the case study overall, considering like recruiter has less time?
It will make it lengthier. I have always been a proponent of longer case studies, and I don't see that as a friction point toward recruiters or hiring managers. Tim, Katie, any challenges with that?
I think we are shifting towards an era of portfolios having less focus on process, which inevitably means that there's going to be those who hire for people who are not showing their process, and there will be those who hire for people who are showing their process. This is a strategy thing. You usually have to make a choice about which side you're going to lean onto. I would say that there is an excellent story here. Like, it does seem a little bit like I'm reading maybe like a blog post almost, right? Where I'm seeing like, this is the thing you're doing. It's very like picturesque to look at. I think that process may inject a little bit of ownership. And if you can story tell it in a way that is visual, the same way you're doing here, right? You're saying like, here's like a problem. Here's the problem with their process. And like, how do I do this? So this is like, you're making this like a product sell, but you need to sell yourself too, right? And so selling yourself is the impact and the process that you're doing. I think you're missing, at least you don't need to like, I don't think you need to make like double the size of this or anything. But I do think that you have this impact here. This is impact section, which is at the very end, which is, I guess, fine. Impact solutions you should also maybe talk about impact a little bit sooner than that. But if you get to this impact solution, and I'm now maybe at the end of my trust ladder, where I'm like, I have now completely, I'm sold. I've seen all this thing. You convinced me that this is a problem and that this is what you were able to accomplish. I'm ready to learn about how you did this. I'm ready to learn more about like, you know, what your actual thing was, what you were doing, what your thought process was for the whole thing. Otherwise, I think this does risk just falling under a generic blog post about another cool thing that happened in the world, but it's not necessarily super repeatable or even applicable to my own company. So I would agree with Nate. There is room for more process to be here. How much process you put in here is up to you, but I would at least give it a section comparable to this impact section, and with some of these storytelling elements that you have out here, because this is very SaaS oriented, right? I feel like I'm buying a product rather than buying you or something.
I see. Yeah, probably I need to work on this and wait till next week to figure out whether I'm selling SaaS product or selling myself.
Yeah. Well, I also, I mean, like, I think you're doing a great job of making it compact, right? So if I assume, I'm just going to ignore this top part, but if I assume this is where you're starting, you're saying, hey, this is the thing I do. Here's a value, right? And then you're saying, here is the thing I did. So you have the like the impact, you have the what you did, you have your involvement on here. So I know that you're at least involved a little bit. You have actual numbers here. So this will speak well. If anyone's like parsing this with an AI, they'll be able to quickly say like, yeah, this is actually validated. And then you have a story about like, why do I care about this? Because I've cared about this. So now you're setting up the framing. This is the problem. Now I believe truly that like the problem you're solving matters a lot. You're spending a lot of time focusing on this. This is stuff that I would expect more in that SaaS level stuff, right? And then your solution, but is this your only process piece right here? Is that you explored multiple concepts for how an AI could service insights and you did iteration user feedback?
No. I actually did quite a lot more. I did like stakeholder interviews, comparative analysis, and all those things. It's just that like I like fitting all of those elements in one case study. I felt like whether that would bore someone or like they will pass on to next candidate. So
Yeah.
just
So I
because
would
of
give.
that.
Do you know what? Have you ever read a research paper before?
Yes, I have.
And at the top of every research paper, there's an abstract.
Yes.
If you treat the first section of your thing as an abstract, but you set up a great title here, if you were to do a small abstract here that just captures some of your highlights, your main things, I think then you're appealing to this. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but like I'm at least getting the highlights here. And then people can get into the actual details. You can appeal to a little bit of both here. So I don't think I definitely don't think this is too long as it is.
Okay. Thank you. That's thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you for validating.
Do you feel like you've got enough feedback to be actionable on some stuff?
Yes. One last question I had was like, do you think in the last section of solution, second last section, do you want like a Figma design, like as in the interaction design to be shown, or like a clickable prototype to be shown for the solutions, or is it fine, like how the content has been oriented so far?
I've got thoughts on this. Let me go first, and Tim, I'll pass it off to you. If your goal is targeting senior product design, I don't care as much about the Figma output. If your goal is UI design, I might care more about a prototype in some fashion. But for senior product design, I care much more about the strategy.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Tim, what are your thoughts?
I find that your little section divider there of like you went from like spotlights to strategy builder is interruptive actually. And I'm a big proponent of removing that interruption. I think that you're setting up, you already have these components already do a lot of storytelling and segmentation by themselves. And you shouldn't, if someone is like deep in the flow of like looking at these and really getting in here, I don't think you need to interrupt them by saying like, now we're pivoting to a different thing here. You can keep that flow going. In terms of like what you put in here, I think actually that these GIFs that you have in here, I'm assuming these are GIFs, I guess they could be another MP4 or something like that, are better than including the actual Figma pieces of it. Especially because Figma, again, this is a strategy position, right? Figma is just a tool, but for some people, they understand that tool to be the identity of a designer. And if you're in that boat, there is the problem right now where people are like, oh, there's other tools other than Figma. Figma's dead now, or other stuff to that regard. I think just focusing on like the actual output where it's like this is a real product. This is more grounding. How you reach this product doesn't really matter to a lot of people in terms of like the actual tool that you use, as long as you have intentionality and you have thought process that you're communicating behind it. So I don't think you need the Figma here. I think these are fine. This is adequate as it is.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback.
Excellent. Appreciate the time.
Hopefully it's valuable to you. But
definitely. 100% it was. Thank you.
All right. We are an hour in. Next up, we're heading toward Last Human, who I have found in the chat and invited to the stage. Last Human, hello.
Hi everyone. Hello, how are you?
Hey, doing well. You are coming in real softly. If you're able to move the mic closer to the mouth or find a way to adjust volume at all.
Oh, actually, yeah, got it.
Hey, way better. Hey, welcome. Totally very cool to speak with you. Tell us more about yourself and what your goals are with the call.
Okay, so as you can see, I am a product designer, but I'm aspiring for the junior product designing role. I've got a lot of internships experiences as well as contract basis work, but I'm still trying for the full-time junior product designer work. So I'm continuously I'm doing a job hunt for 2 months, but I'm not getting any interview calls. My resume is getting shortlisted, but after round 2, I because of some kind of problem, I don't know, rejecting me.
Getting to round 2. That alone is a metric of success. I think you're doing an okay job there. Granted, there is some context we're missing. All of us on this call have gotten to round 2 interviews and have gotten rejected. Never take it personally. It's always more about the fit for the company than it is as the actual person or personality. So feel free to relieve yourself of that stress if you're in fact feeling any of that. I see that you're product designer. Is your goal with this call to let me ask you, is your goal to get hired at a larger organization?
Not exactly. I am quite good with startups or big companies because I've already done internship both startup and quite a large contract corporate bank. So I'm okay with anything.
Okay, what job title are you looking to target?
I'm currently targeting the junior product designer.
Cool.
Junior product designer. Junior, yeah.
Got it. Tim, feel free to hop in there. Tim, you're muted.
I am muted. I muted myself. Sorry. I found that I can make a nice donk sound. I don't know if it comes through on
What's not
Discord.
doing it now?
Yep, I think it's just Google Meet. Only Google Meet's the only one who registers that gong sound. Okay,
Yeah,
so
Discord's noise cancellation is so good.
they're whisper modules. I am taking in your website right now. We can focus on your landing page because it is quite a landing page, or we can focus on a case study. It is up to you on which one you want us to focus most of our time
Uh,
with.
I think as a designer, we should focus on more case studies because no recruiter care about the landing pages.
That is not true. Landing page is a huge part of discovery and first impressions. Nonetheless, we will acquiesce and focus on a case study for you, but don't undermine the power of the dark side. No, of the case of your landing page. Make sure that your landing page is up to speed, and there are definitely some things to do here that we can focus on in another meeting.
Sure.
Nate, where do you want to start with this?
I don't know. There's so much cool stuff going on here. Let's see.
This the there's between the image. I think it's kind of heavy. I'm like trying to do something about it, but yeah, it's quite a heavy thing. Yeah.
Okay. Let me first say I love using Framer. I use Framer for my own portfolio website. Framer is awesome. There's so many cool things about Framer. And because Framer has so many switches, I think there's a tendency for us to turn too many switches on and to use too many of these features. So we are in a position of looking at your website right now, and I think there's too many things happening. Remember the animation, interactions, emojis, color, attention, everything is designed to use a certain amount of attention from the user. And the amount of attention and cognitive ability that a user has is always going to be limited, which means that you use these tools to help emphasize and create a story to focus on the most important thing. Right away, when I land on this case study, the high contrast and large capital font here is making it difficult for me to consume the name of your case study. This is hard for me to read. It's hard for me to scan quickly. It takes a lot of attention, which means that actually when I land on your page right away, I actually am much more focused, especially if you see the load sequence that you're doing. I focus on this image more and I scroll down before I even see the name of your case study or the tagline here, which is maybe that's a choice that you're making unintentionally, but I would suggest that this is bad because this title is one place you have the chance to do storytelling about your impact, why you're doing this, and you also have the chance to frame this in such a way as to tell me what to expect and what to focus on. Otherwise, I'm just looking at a picture of a MacBook with a UI in it, and I don't know what about this I'm supposed to enjoy, appreciate, focus on. I don't know exactly what this does. Even though it's a very picturesque picture, and it's got some hard corners, it's got that, very like Gothic type look, it does nothing for me. There's no value that I'm prepared to accept or see here because you've told me nothing of what to expect, what to look for, what to focus on. Also, that I do think that in this case, you have a hero image. There's a little bit of animation on the hero image. That's forgivable. But doing a hero animation on your image, then doing an animation on the next image, and then doing animation on every single element thereafter is way too much. And you see, as I'm scrolling, these are long images that are meant to be scrolling through. There is like a zoom out effect. This is like making me a little seasick to look at. This is like a weird, this is like a camera effect from like Severance or something where it's giving you that like little bit of like the hallways never ending kind of vibe. And that is not the feeling you want someone to have when they're on your case study is, wow, this case study will never end. The images just keep going. Severance is, we're not going to talk about it right now, but that's not the effect you want. That's just as frankly not the effect that you want. So with that already out of the way, that's my first recommendation. This landing section area needs some help. You're going to need to focus a little bit on this title, making this more impact focused, more valuable in your storytelling. You're going to need to focus on making sure that your tagline, any descriptor text you have, also serves a purpose. And then making sure this purpose doesn't get lost because of the way the screen loads and the amount of real estate that you're giving it. You just saw we gave feedback to our other friend Rummet, and we said like, hey, it's okay to have a landing page that is just text, and that's okay. Just make sure it is an impactful Make sure it's impactful and that it is it's valuable. Otherwise, you're spending a lot of real estate to give me a first impression that means nothing to me. There's nothing happening here. Nothing is like really working for me.
Got it. Yeah.
Nate, Katie, any other feedback?
I want to talk about positioning for a moment. So you have mentioned that your goal is to get hired as a junior product designer. Now let's talk about job titles for a second. UI designer, UX designer, job, product designer. 3 different titles. Depending on who you ask, these all have different definitions. Depending on what job application you're reading, they have different skill sets. So if we look at the average of all of these things, my perception of a UI designer is a person that is focused on the output, making things easy to use and functional. My perception of a UX designer is that of solving user problems, identifying who these folk are, identifying the target audience, what outcomes they're looking to achieve, and then negotiating a outcome that assists in achieving that goal. Product designer, I'm now looking at somebody who is attempting to negotiate business problems. What are the business objectives we're trying to achieve? What are the goals of this particular project? And what are the success metrics that we can utilize to validate the goals of this business have been attained? So looking at your portfolio, your current set of artifacts along this case study, I would argue are positioning you to that closer of a UI designer. You're like dabbling in some business stuff. Like Tim, if you scroll down to the goals and success metrics section, you're using the terminology here to that of a product designer, like simplify navigation, reduce cognitive load. This is more UI oriented. This is not the section I'm talking about. Hang on. Where'd it go? The ask? Where was it? Somewhere on here, you were talking about business goals. Am I wrong? Help me out.
I mean, I'm having a hard time reading a lot of the content on the page because of the way it's structured, which would be another thing to talk
animation?
about. There's other things other than animation too. There's also scale, which we'll talk about.
Sure.
Which we'll talk about.
Okay. Well, I thought I had found somewhere on the case study where you were talking about business goals. Even if there was that section, I'm looking for more of it. If your goal is to target product design. If your goal is to target UI design, I think you're well on your way. How are you feeling about that feedback so far? Like if your goal is to target product, I would love to see more about how you negotiate business goals, how you break them down into smaller achievable sections, how you're measuring the success of each of those goals. Is all of that making sense so far?
Yeah. But I want to know that, but I don't have that kind of I didn't actually manage those kind of projects. I worked on those kind of designers with them, but it's not like it's my project whole. I worked on chunks. So how come I can say that I have solved the whole business problem? This kind of issue here as a junior level.
Yeah. And junior product design, it's a tough category to be in. Like junior UI and junior UX, I feel like is an easier negotiation than that of junior product design because it dives more heavily into the business strategy than it does like user outcomes. So measuring success and validating momentum of an application with a product team is hard to measure on paper from that of a design lens. There are some things we can do, like we can incorporate analytics. It sounds like your team potentially has access to some of those analytics, or maybe not. We can talk about like measuring the impact and the value of the conversion has increased by 4% and our profit margin has increased by X%. All of that stuff. Those are hard metrics. If you can obtain those, great. That's kind of best case scenario, but most of us don't have the ability to obtain those. Instead, one thing you can do is start measuring behavior changes. So for example, I work in corporate healthcare in the United States. I work for a Fortune 25, big organization. And we are building a product that is massively overhauling a lot of our databases and enabling users to negotiate and work with claims, part of the healthcare process. It is really hard for us to say like, oh, building this new thing has saved us X amount of dollars. But we can say is building this thing has enabled our analysts to no longer utilize Excel for managing claims. We can say things like building this new application process is now enabling analysts to get the information they need in the correct order in a timely manner. So like things like that, if you're able to measure the behaviors that have changed and the outcomes that have changed because of the product that you've built, you can then include that as part of your success validation, and all of that is perfectly fine. How are you feeling about that? Do you feel like you might be able to add on here descriptions about the outcomes that were achieved and the behaviors that changed because of your initiative?
Because I can, because these skills are actually on the development of the organization, so I can get some from them. What is the user testing data from? Yeah.
Okay. If you're able to dive into that, that's what I think is the largest area of opportunity from that of your case study if your goal is product design. Tim, it sounds like I'm looking at your
Like,
face. You
there
feel
is
like you've got something to say.
feel like because like I can add the data and make the case study lot of like I did that, I did those, but I got like I personally get a like one of the recruiter, like I job hunt during the job hunt, that he told me that you are applying for junior designer, but you are explaining things as a senior level, so I feel like you are exaggerating your
There are
limits, like you yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there are. If I were to repeat that back to you, I think what you're saying is you have gotten feedback from recruiters that you are describing more strategy than you are of the tactics, and it's the wrong position for you.
Hmm. Yeah, they say that you are in an intern now and you are showing the data of senior designer. How come it's possible? Like they asking for the justification of your like my case studies. Like my previous like a portfolio was quite a descriptive side, and that time they asked me that why is your case studies like you have done senior designer level work, but you are just an intern. So how come it possible? Like they see that as a lie.
I'm not sure I'm fully comprehending. Let me repeat that back to you again. I think what you're saying is
Yeah.
other folks have perceived your portfolio at a senior level, and they're asking why you're applying for entry level candidacy.
Actually, they are not exactly. They are saying that your previous experience is internship, like you are a product design intern. But the way you are explaining your case study is actually a senior product designer. So how come you are actually be able to work something that product senior level product designer actually do? They are asking about that when you don't have that kind of position, then how come you have the work of those kind of positions? I think I'm not clear.
Yeah, what I'm hearing. So I'm gonna say the funny thing first, and then we're gonna be sensitive. But it
Yeah,
sounds
sure.
like they're upset that you're just really good. They're like, how the heck did an intern do a senior level job? And you're like, well, I guess I was just a really good intern. But no, the reality is that value is in the eyes of the beholder. Whoever is there looking at it and how they perceive you. And unfortunately, there are going to be some people who heckle you and who want to devalue you. And so there is an important aspect that you're just going to have to know your own personal value yourself, and know that you don't need 8 years of experience to apply to a senior level role. You could apply to a senior level role right out of college or not even do college. It's all about your skills. If you have the skills to apply to a job, you should apply to that job. If you know how to do that job, you should do that job, regardless of what the title is or what they're saying you need a degree for. Now, there are certain regulations in different countries. Like, obviously, you can't apply to like a doctor. You cannot be a doctor if you don't have like a PhD when the other requisite things, and there's certification tests, and that's very regulated. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the world of technology where it's literally just computers and code and pixels and stuff. And if you're willing to take the responsibility and the accountability for some of these roles that you apply to, and you have the skills to do it, then you can do it. You don't need to lie to do that either. You don't have to lie and say, I do have 8 years of experience. I'm a senior designer. Therefore, I should get a senior designer role. You can just say like, no, I'm actually just really good, and I can compete with 8+ years of experience people, and that's okay. You can use that. That's a thing you can lean into. You don't need to be rude about it either, even if they're rude to you. And I'm very sorry that you've had an experience of someone heckling you on some of this stuff. I have some recommendations though. I have some more recommendations now that I've looked at your portfolio a little more thoroughly. I have some questions I want to ask you if I can get into some of the weeds here.
Sure.
This mouse cursor You have a little circle dot here. I'm curious what you believe the value of this mouse cursor to be for the user who's looking at your website.
Actually, by the why I use it I have added the slow motion to the every section of the website. Literally, I have the slow motion. So to justify that, I actually use that mouse effect so that user feel like it has a driving effect, but it's actually not. It's a section effect. Yeah. Actually,
So there
if you're
is,
feeling the
so there's
if you're
no
feeling the
scroll
slowness,
jacking on this website is what you're saying.
there is no slow effect. It's a section effect. Every section has like a slow kind of dragging thing, but you feel like it's mouse.
Well, I actually am more pointing to this cursor. You have a circle cursor here.
It was I got attracted to because most of Framer website have these kind of cursors, some kind of fill or some kind of stroke one. So I use the stroke one. Yeah.
If you don't know why you're going to push the button, I will recommend on the web, don't push the button. So if you have a specific value, like for example, maybe like this is part of my branding, this is part of my theme, is this circle icon here or something. Otherwise, I'm going to recommend probably don't do it. As far as your scrolling does work, even if it's not scroll jacking, like the actual button that Framer has for scroll jacking, and this is a section effect, even as you say, I'd be really careful with scroll jacking as well, because that scroll jacking can really directly So going back to user cognition, right? Every user has a certain amount of bandwidth that they can dedicate to looking at your website. And it's your goal and your job to make sure they focus on the right things. If I focus on, oh, wow, my mouse has a cool circle thing on it, as I'm going past the real stuff that I need to focus on, which is the stuff that you did and your value, then like you failed in that regard, because now I'm focusing on the wrong thing. If I'm distracted by, wow, this page scrolls a little bit differently than how normal pages scroll, and I don't focus on the content here, then I've also there's a problem here. And so just keep in mind that every time you push a button on Framer or another place, even though these buttons are really cool to play with, you can go to my website. I have a tab, like a poll page I just call /playground. And when I want to play with Framer stuff, I just go to that area and I turn on Framer stuff and play with it. But I wouldn't put it on my portfolio where I'm trying to help people see my value, because now I'm just playing with the Framer toys. Your website is very photo heavy, which is going to impact performance. And I'm wondering if you've already tested this on mobile, like if you know how good the experiences of looking at these pictures on mobile is. You know that like 80% of the world's web traffic it's like 80 to 92% of the world's traffic is by mobile, including some recruiters.
Yeah.
So that's the thing to think about. Look how the value of these photos is suddenly pretty low. Like maybe the stickies. I'm like, yeah, you can kind of get away with the stickies, I guess. But then oh yeah, these bullet points that are an image. It's an image, which is a little bit weird to be an image instead of to be text written out. Suddenly that goes away, and that's very difficult. There's another link. I seem to share this link every single time. It's from the Bauer Institute, though, and it's a research project that they did. Bauer, by the way, they just research product usability, so really good to know. And they actually have a thing where they talk about the optimal line length, and this is basically comparing when a human sits in front of an object, right? If I look in front of the camera, there's a certain vision. I have a certain scope that I can look at, and there's an even smaller scope of where I look like I'm actually focused. And then there's a difference between what I'm able to look at and focus and what I'm able to easily scan and read without lots of movement. Yes, I can do that move. I can directly look at you. So they are actually suggesting that there's a certain there's a pixel limit for how large content should be for it to be optimal. And it's about this size right here in this image here. And I'll copy this link. I'll post it in here. So when I go to your thing, first of all, look how far apart this content is. So we are already talking about how this is a struggle. And actually, let me make this. I'll make it exactly the size. This is the size of a MacBook Pro. And then we'll even get rid of the sidebar. So this is your native website experience to someone who's on MacBook. Look how far apart these are. and like the limit of like how far I'm supposed to read and comprehend here is too wide. This is just too wide. I look at this image. This image is actually, funnily enough, about the right width across, right? So to focus on the MacBook. So your framing this image is good here. Of course, when you get up to bigger scales, that might go away because it scales. Now look how far across this is as well. This is also making me read really far across. And then this is framed okay, even though it's kind of a little weird that it zooms out. I'm trying to look at the content, and you're zooming me out as I'm looking at this content. And so, like, I guess it's like you could split hairs on here, but if you want me to focus on the reading and the actual UI that you've built here, you should tell me. You should tell me what to look at first. You should help me understand where I'm supposed to look, what the value and what impact you did here. So I'm like amazed and impressed that this is what you did. And then also don't zoom out too much, because this zoom out makes me focus on the borders. You can see like my eyes want to go to the thing that's moving. And as I scroll down, the thing that's moving is the edge of the photo here. And so like this is where my eyes go. My eyes are going to go to the edge of the photo. And what's noticeably not at the edge of this photo is your UI that you designed that you're trying to show off. And so that's also a cool thing. And typically you also want to look at something that gets bigger, not as it gets smaller, right? So you might expect to like zoom in and be like, oh, that's kind of a cool UI. And then it gets a little bit bigger to help you zoom in. You know, this is the same thing with like hover effects. When you hover on something, typically that thing gets a little bit bigger, not a little bit smaller. And so this is the antithesis of like a human psychology principle right here. We're seeing this image go the wrong way. Now you shouldn't make images too loud either. Like if I was to come in here and this image got like 200% bigger, it's probably too loud. And we know that there is like a certain limit to the amount of content that I want to look at with my eyes to scan it quickly and discern that value. So I would just be careful. Just all things to think about, right? Now, okay, what a comment. Not to get derailed, If you look here, one, these are not lined up correctly, right? So the ask goes to here, the target audience kind of lines here, and then you have design challenges, and there's nothing over here. And so this already feels like, oh, well, maybe target audience actually goes to this challenges, and maybe design challenges goes to elderly customers. And so like, of course, they set this up the wrong way. So, you know, this is like an error. So no matter how you look at this section, at a scanning glance, it does look poor. It looks a little juvenile in that regard. So I would really recommend changing this format. So that way if you're going to use these all together next to each other, follow the pattern that you're instituting. And so you have these here. Now, another thing that you're going to notice here is that your content's too far away. So you're telling me here's the title of the content, and now I need to go over here. So even though this content in length is scannable, this is readable, this is correctly set up as a column, this double column isn't how I like to read or digest content. And so this also makes it really difficult to scan and to want to look at this. And so my eyes naturally follow the ask, and then my eyes might get over here and be like, Codar's current, like, all right, target audience. And I've already missed this entire paragraph and all this content. So I do think there's an opportunity for you. One, as Nate was saying, your content needs to be improved. But also here is that the structure you're presenting content is doing you a disservice and helping people not get into the content that you have here. And they're not learning as much here. I'm going to stop there. I've been talking for a while. And I think that generally what we've talked about can probably be applied in a lot of different places. How are you feeling about that so far? Any concerns or questions?
I think I've got the idea. Like, if I want, like, according to the job profile, I have to create the case studies. First thing I've got, and second is that I have to be lot more. I have to like rather than getting so much animation, I have to be straightforward with the case studies so that recruiter doesn't get distracted with my animations. Recruiters doesn't get distracted with my animations of my portfolio rather than reading my case studies. There are some other minus thing I also got, like what should I do, what kind of animation I can use generally.
I think that's a pretty good capture of many things we talked about. Nate, do you have anything, or Katie, do you have anything you want to add to this conversation so far?
Nothing that we haven't already talked about.
Yeah, same here. I think the biggest thing that I would wanted to point out was the imagery as well, the zoom effect. So
Yeah, I will keep that in mind and change those all aspects and redesign my case study part. Sure.
Cool. I'm going to use this quick moment. We're going to move forward to our next person. I'm going to take a quick moment though. I've gotten a message from Leo, and I also saw that he kind of posted this in our chat as well. So just to answer Leo's question really quickly about trust ladders. Trust ladder is a kind of, it's like a, I don't know if it's a framework necessarily or if it's more of a theory, but it is the way that you earn trust from someone before you ask them to take an action. And so it's important to build trust before you ask a user to do something. You'll see this with shopping all the time, is that shopping websites will tell you, hey, this is the product, this is why you should buy it. And then they say, here's your buy button. And if they put the buy button first, you're probably just going to say no because you don't even know what you're buying. And so the trust ladder is this kind of idea that if you are not giving someone enough reason to care or to trust what you're about to ask them to do, they're going to say no. And the more often they say no, the more likely it is that they're going to keep saying no. So in general, like don't, this applies to designers in terms of like resumes or even case studies. If I go to someone's website, like we're on Nadim's website, which is on Framer, we love Framer. If we were to say like the trust ladder here is that they're saying, hey, I'm a product designer. Here are some of the reasons to trust me right away. And then now I have some work that you can look at. And so this is the action that I'm being asked to take is look at some of their work based on the trust experience that they have here of telling me why they should care. That's part of your trust ladder. And this applies in a bunch of different ways. So, but we're going to go ahead and move from talking about trust ladders very briefly to our next person.
Yeah, next up is Slice, added to the call. Slice, welcome.
Thank you. So nice to meet you. My name is Alice. I've been a product designer for around 7 years now, and late last year I'd gotten laid off from my previous role, and I've just been looking for a new role in UI UX ever since. So far in the search, I've gotten as far as, for example, the non-technical screening call and one online interview, and I haven't gotten much farther than that. So I've been trying to just improve what I can with my resume and my portfolio, making sure it's ATS compatible, making sure that my storytelling is up to par, and that I'm able to pinpoint which problem the design is trying to solve and all. And today I just like some advice on how I could give my portfolio more aesthetic or visual character, as well as improve my storytelling and how I might be structuring my projects. So thank you.
Nice. Heck yeah. I may have missed. I'm hearing you're a product designer for 7 years. What's the job title you're looking to target?
That's a good question. I don't really have a specific one in mind, but generally I've been targeting senior product designer, senior UX designer, mid-level for the same things, and just anything around that.
Got it. Understood. Cool.
Alice, I'm highly sympathetic to your situation. Just so everyone knows here, your work, I was talking to someone else about this recently today. Everyone should know that even though I know we identify a lot as designers or as people who build and kind of do stuff, our work is not what gives us value or determines like our identity. And so getting laid off is so hard because it feels like so much of your value gets like sucked out into that. But just know that you're valuable even whether or not you're employed or whatever your job title is. And that no matter who you are, you're not immune to layoffs, to job changes, to sudden life experiences changing. And it happens to everyone, regardless of how valuable or how skilled you are. It's sometimes just like a thing that happens. It is super traumatic. And so I'm sympathetic to that. Today, as we focus on your stuff, Alice, which it looks like there's a lot to look at. Do you want us to focus on your landing page, or do you want us to focus on your case study? Now, this question, we haven't framed it very well in the past, but basically what we're asking when we say this question is, do you know already in the funnel where people are dropping you off? Like, is it people look at your website and then immediately say, like, I'm actually not interested in this person? Do you know if they're reading your case studies and you're like, yeah, they're actually spending time asking me questions about what's on my case study? Or are they, is maybe in interviews, you get interviews and they drop off somewhere over there. You're not able to present your case studies in interviews very effectively. Do you know like what already is your challenge here?
So, I get the impression that it may be that they don't even get to my website before deciding that there are stronger candidates out there. It could be a resume thing. And for the resume, I have an ATS friendly version that I use for online applications. And for the version that's you don't have to open it today, but the one that's linked in my just up
Don't
there.
open it, Tim.
That one is like a more designer made for the human designer version. That has my
Okay.
phone number. That's why I said
Tim, the resume has sensitive data at the top, so we may want to close out of that. Is that okay, Alice? If the resume is on stream, or would you prefer to take a look at that another time?
maybe a different time, because I feel like there have been times before where they might have not moved on with me just because of my portfolio website. And it's not that they told me this outright, it's that I probably just deduced and came to the conclusion. I have talked to design mentors and just my peers about the portfolio website. And I think today, because earlier this week I'd gone through a lot of changes with it, we could probably look at the landing page and, if time permits, one of the case studies. Just anyone that captures your attention.
Okay, we'll get into
Cool.
case studies. Nate, I'm probably gonna choose the first case study, unless otherwise. Let me give
Well,
you,
just
Alice.
a quick Tim, I'm so sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to mention real fast. I'm hearing what you're saying in regarding to getting into the hiring funnel. It sounds like you've gotten a couple of interviews, the screening call, the online interview. So it doesn't sound like it's failing completely. But my initial reaction was, well, then let's take a look at the resume and see why that's funneling you out. I had the ATS thought in mind, but then you described that you got an ATS friendly one. So totally understand where you're coming from there. I'd love to dive down a case study just real fast. I love your homepage. It's very simplistic. It guides the user immediately to a case study. And your value prop at the top is pretty solid. The designing digital products that assemble audience, that is alone is kind of just okay. It doesn't differentiate you at all. But the section below that is great. 7+ years experience, B2B SaaS environments, specializing in ed tech, passion for e-commerce. Like, these are all differentiators that position you heavily. The sacrifice then being that you are positioning yourself for a niche, so there are fewer jobs available, but you are a much stronger candidate for those jobs. I think all of that is the appropriate, correct sacrifice. Do you have any concerns with any of that?
So I understand how putting down my specialization based on past experiences and my the main subject of my passion work could be limiting in that regard. I honestly don't want to limit myself too much because I'm open to getting into any sector. So I guess based on that, would that be reason enough to change what I have with the text under my title and subtitle?
This is a huge conversation, and I love talking about this. The Spark Notes version is, I'm going to try to give you this in bullet points. My education is in marketing, and in marketing, we are massively compelled by differentiation. The more you can differentiate your uniqueness, the better your product, or in your case, your product being your capability, your service. The more you can differentiate yourself, the better and more effective your marketing efforts will be. So there's bullet point number one. Bullet point number two is the sacrifice of removing your niche from your positioning. It's that sliding scale of generalization versus specialist, or another way to say it is generalist versus specialist. The more generalist you are, the less capable or effective your job applications will be. The more niche you are, fewer jobs, but the far more effective your applications would be. I would heavily implore you to maintain your niche, maintain your differentiation, and then focus on those specific jobs, even though there are fewer of them. Is that sounding okay with you?
Yes, that sounds good to me.
Cool. Beyond that, Tim, unless there's anything you want to talk about homepage wise, I'd love to dive into a case study.
Yes, Alice, I'm gonna recommend where I'm gonna try to be really short. I've talked so much today. I'm gonna recommend you the special. It's called the Senior Designer Special, which is for some explicit reason. There's a group of senior designers out there in the world who all work at really big places, and they have like ridiculous amounts of white space. And the Senior Designer Special is essentially give yourself some more white space. So this is your website as I've moved white space around, which kind of creates a little bit of a better frame. And this is your current website, which just lacks a lot of room and a lot of breathing room. And automatically adding a little bit of breathing room already elevates and kind of lets things take stage a little bit better. So the Senior Designer Special is fortunately very free because there's an abundance of these designers out there who just have minimalist portfolios. Just give yourself a little bit of breathing room. I'm also going to say you have a Framer portfolio, and I love Framer, and I want to help everyone who has Framer websites be a little bit better. So, guys, if you have Framer websites and you want help setting up your metadata, please come on stream with us sometime so I can have a chance to talk about how to set your Framer metadata up so it works better for you and is more effective overall. Let us get into a case study, though, from Alice.
Alice, have you been on these calls with us before, previous Fridays at all?
As part of the audience, yes.
Cool. Okay, cool. We talk about a lot of things. We often repeat ourselves in regard to target audience and the ratio of text to imagery. Happy to talk about all that again. Love talking about that stuff. But have you heard it all before? Is most of this redundant?
I don't think it'd be redundant if you mentioned it this time.
Cool. Tim, I've got some thoughts here. I'm going to hop in real fast and then I'll open the floor. Your case study here, and I opened up the first one. Most candidates, hiring managers, recruiters, they're going to scroll down to the first one with the assumption that the first one's the most important one that you're wanting to present. So if this isn't the most important one, you'll want to position whatever the first one is as your most important one. Your case study has a lot of stuff going for it. And a lot of this is the correct, how do I describe this? Where my mind is at is it's the correct mistake to make, but that's not really what I'm trying to imply here. There's a phrase in writing, all good writing is rewriting, and you have nailed the first draft to this portfolio or this case study. You have so much verbiage, so much story to tell. Now the goal is can we rewrite this in a way that's consumable? And then I think as a quick skim is one of the biggest areas of opportunity. You've got all this content, it's just hard to read through. And you can do that in a couple of ways. You talked about aesthetic differentiation. We can talk about aesthetics as well. Tim's got much more handle on aesthetics than I do. When I'm opening the case study, I want to learn three things. What's the problem? How did you solve that problem? Then how did you measure success that the problem was solved? I have no doubt that you have all of that information in here. I just don't know where it is because there's so much stuff here. The first section, redesigning prerequisite creation as an infrequent, high impact task, that's a mouthful. And I have no doubt it's factually accurate, but this is an opportunity to lean into storytelling. And instead of saying redesigning prerequisite creation as an infrequent, high impact task, we could say instead something like helping users identify what problems they need to solve and in the order to solve them. Some sort of storytelling to capture the interest of the user. Let me pause there. How is that sounding so far? Is that making sense?
I think so. Could you please go up to the specific point that you were mentioning where the title's too long?
Yeah, it's the second. Tim's diving in. He's doing hackery.
I like that. I like that. It's shorter. Yeah. I'm probably gonna have to ask you the name of this extension because I think it would be good too for just helping out other people with their portfolio work.
Tim, you're still muted.
It's because there's lots of background noise happening in the background. Sorry, I keep muting myself so it doesn't show up. But there is this extension. I use a bunch of extensions. I pasted in the chat because everyone It's always asked after. In general, though, I agree with Nate. I actually was giving this like the scan, like the visual scan, and I'd say you're like really far along. Like it has, as Nate said, like a lot of the things you already have here are already working for you. It does just come down to like that wordsmithing. I know wordsmithing and copywriting is not everyone's skill. And that's okay. Not everyone needs to be good at those things. But I do think you have a lot of this stuff here already. There's just going to be a couple places where we can make it feel a little bit more. The word that's coming to mind is boutique, but we don't want it to necessarily look boutique. We just want it to look like crafted and intentional. Like it was like put here on purpose rather than maybe looking like a system dialog error from 2001 or something, right? Where this is like website error problem. You want it to be a little bit more beautiful in that regard. What are we looking for on the page? You said a certain section.
Yeah, we were looking at the title number 2, the first H2 on the page. Redesigning prerequisite creation as an infrequent, high-impact task. Say that 5 times fast. So one of the reasons I like to talk about titles a lot, Alice, is that it's Alice, right? Did I write that down correctly?
Yes, Alice is
Perfect.
my name. Slice is just what I use on Discord.
Fantastic. The reason I like to talk about titles heavily is that when a recruiter or hiring manager or anybody really looks at your case study, no one's reading the entire thing. They scroll through it. They might find a section that they want to read more in depth, but for the most part, we are looking to consume the data through like this visual mitosis of just consuming all the data quickly. With skimming in mind, there's 2 things that are really effective for skimming. One is lengthy titles. You've certainly got that down. You're nailing lengthy titles, but utilizing those lengthy titles in a storytelling consumable fashion. Like for example, I think what I said last time was something along the lines of understanding users and identifying their pain points, like blah, blah, whatever human title there is for that section that we're currently looking at. Find a way to tell that title in a storytelling way. And then the second thing we can do is rely on imagery. Now, I'm fearful of saying this because when I say we should rely more on imagery, what I think people hear is I should remove content, and that's not what I mean. What I want to say is if there is a way to translate your textual content into a visual format, that is going to be far superior from a storytelling perspective and a consumable perspective of telling your story quickly. If we scroll down slightly, Tim, we have a list of major improvements and impact. Are you able? Yeah, right there. Major improvements and impact. Bottom of your screen. So those 2 lists are like a really easy opportunity for, can I display this in a visual way? You totally can. How do you feel about like taking some of these textual things and then turning them into a visual artifact of some kind? I think that would be a really low-hanging piece of fruit for you to make this case study more consumable. How are you feeling about that?
I'm definitely feeling like listing anything with a list would be worth a try to use as an image instead. But then there's one kind of issue with that where sometimes I can't use the exact image or something close to the exact image because I'm still bound by NDA. And sometimes the outcomes, because of that, and because this wasn't like a 0 to 1, this wasn't a 0 to 1 project that got shipped to customers and everything. It was just put in the future sprint plans. When would the future sprint plans, be actioned out? I don't know, because that would have been, if it did, it would have been after I left the company. So then if I don't have a tangible way to measure the outcome, then I'm wondering what I can do to make that loss of value not so apparent, or to reframe that into a different type of value, if that makes sense.
I think I'm following. I think I'm hearing 2 questions. Question number 1 is, question number 1 was, how can I display this visually if I sign an NDA and these images I don't have access to? And question number 2 is, how do I depict value in the case study? Is that sounding right?
For the first one, it's I could work out the first one on my own, but the second question is more what I'm wondering your perspective on.
Yeah. NDAs are fascinating in their own rights. And this is where I have to preface and, of course, say I'm not a lawyer, nor can I speak to NDAs with any academic backing. One of the things, let me first ask, when you say you signed an NDA, it was a genuine NDA that you signed? Because oftentimes it's not.
I wouldn't know the difference.
But I'm hearing that you signed something, a contract of some sort. Is that accurate?
It would likely have been when I started working there. I don't remember the specifics, but I'm just trying to play it safe in that regard.
Got it. So what I'm hearing is it's possible that you signed an NDA, but if what you signed was just your employment application as you got hired into the process, I would argue it's likely not that you signed an NDA. NDAs are typically a little bit more noticeable and a little bit more, they're less discreet, I would typically say. So I would challenge you to validate if you in fact did sign an NDA. Then number two is if you did sign that NDA, let's get a copy of it, because NDAs have all kinds of constraints that are unique to your own specific NDA. And then they also have expirations of all kind. So they will depict specifically the things you can and cannot talk about, but they'll also describe the things you can talk about and when the NDA expires or what is even listed behind the NDA. So if you're able to obtain that, you can talk much more effectively about your case study.
And some NDAs try to be blanket statements, and those blanket statements are sometimes not fully legal. For example, there is a right that you have in the United States to reflect. It's called the artist right or something. It basically means that if you help contribute to something and that thing that you contributed to, while owned by another company, is shown in a public area, you have the ability to display it as long as you attribute it. So, for example, if you built this course editor and this course editor is available for people to look at online, you have the right to also show it on your website as long as it's attributed. So this means that anytime you're part of a product and that product gets launched out for people to use, you now, like any NDAs that prevented you from talking about that product, are now no longer necessarily in effect the same way. This mostly applies though, like if I was working on a project and I left that company before the project ever got launched, I couldn't necessarily include that work on my portfolio right away. But as soon as they hit the product launch, people can look at their product. Now I can include that in my portfolio to an extent. Always know the terms, of course, your agreement, but just be aware that if something's available online for people to look at, you probably have the right to show it on your website, as long as it's attributed the correct way.
Okay, that makes me wonder because for this organization, they were working on refreshing a lot of their legacy UI, and this would have been part of a much larger UI refresh initiative and UX refresh too. So the version that's live to their customers, it would have been just really old. It looks like something from the 90s, and this would be just like night and day.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And again, you're not a lawyer. You should get a copy of your NDA to validate. NDAs, the objective is typically to protect intellectual property. So now it's a question of like, is a visual rebranding, does that really fall under the category of intellectual property? And there's an argument to be made, like visual branding is a solution to positioning a particular target audience. And that pivot of momentum could be intellectual property-esque. So no telling otherwise until you get a copy of that NDA.
Would you mind if I change the subject back to outcomes, like measurable, tangible outcomes? Because I would say that the corporate work I did, it didn't really have that because it wasn't shipped out. It was just put in part of future plans. What I would do right now is I would write about the outcomes that I hope that this redesign would bring about, or just outcomes, internal outcomes, like how did it change the internal process, or how did it pave the way for other redesign efforts or other UX improvement efforts within the company without getting too specific. Did you have any other suggestions on how I could handle it if there's if there's no tangible percentage data-based outcome.
Heck yeah. Man, this is a subject, Tim, that I think we're going to have to make some content around this subject and focus on it on our YouTube channel.
It is a
Subscribe to
video
Design Shaped.
I've started that video so many times. So I call this design prototype, or prototyping with numbers. It's called prototyping with numbers. And this, the reason I call it prototyping with numbers is because you use numbers that you're able to, and you make predictions, essentially like a prototype of what you think the impact will be. This applies, you can do this at almost any scale, like legit any scale, right? Now, the effectiveness of it may vary. And so it's better always if you have the actual number. So if you're not using the prototype, if you're using the like actual things. And so if your organization has access to data, get that data. And if you don't have access to that data, it's time for you to prototype a little bit, which is you start comparing like, well, what are orgs that are like my organization? How similar is my org to this org? What do their numbers look like that I can see? And you start trying to figure out like, okay, if I know this number, like say I know the revenue outcome of my business is $1 million a year. And I know that users constitute on this particular item that I was working on constitute 80% of that income. Now I know I'm working with $800 of annual revenue. And then if I estimate, well, the churn that we helped address probably decreased churn by 16%. Now you start adding those numbers on, and then you can say like, well, this feature is most likely tied to this amount of revenue. Because I've done the prototyping, I can now show the logical step of like, yes, I actually can see exactly why we did this and how this was prioritized because it constituted a total grand of like a certain percentage of our revenue. And this is the numbers that support that. That's very easy to say in one sentence for me, even though it's actually, but it can be kind of hard to do on paper, which is why we probably need to spend some time actually like doing this in a workshop. But the general outcome is you probably have access to way more data than you think you do. And business is all people making guesses anyways. And so if you make some very educated guesses based on your own research and what you're able to discern from the data you have, it is almost impossible that you will be in a position where you cannot reasonably predict your actual impact because of a feature that you help ship.
I'll have to sit with that for a bit and think about it, just because I haven't done anything like that before, but I guess I could work out how to get started with that. But yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts on just how the projected outcomes could work. As for the font system, I'm working on redesigning that.
As a quick win, I wanted to mention, did you hear me describe earlier measuring success via measuring behavior outcomes?
I heard a bit about it, yes.
Yeah, so let me give you an example. I currently work healthcare, high corporate enterprise in the States. If you're able to talk about the behavior that you've changed because of your effort, that still counts as a soft metric toward measuring impact and value. If I were to look at my own, these are the goals that I've set per iteration on our product team. And these are methods that of each iteration that we validate success that the iteration's moving in the right direction. These are the metrics that we're using. And you'll see that I'm using metrics a little bit loosely here. Success metric, analysts can hand off service line decisions. Like there is a part of the process that is now able to be achieved. It's not a hard metric. It's just a behavior that can now occur. Another outcome, a health plan analyst can complete assigned efforts in half the time. So there's a reasonable metric there. A health plan manager can now partition effort. So they can now divvy their effort to their entire product team. So like these are behaviors that are now occurring thanks to the thing that I have now done. All of these things validate that the momentum of the application is moving in the correct direction. Is that making sense? And if yes, Tim, hop in.
I was just gonna say, why not take those behaviors the next level though to the business? Because behaviors appeal to people like designers, but designers don't typically hire designers. Business people hire designers. And you can turn those behavior insights into business numbers and metrics as long as you have that data.
Well, what are you thinking? You think I can elevate these?
I think that if you're talking about, give me one of your user behaviors again. Let's see if we can connect it to a business.
A health plan manager can now partition effort.
So if you are able to guess how much of that effort was worth for that person, like if you say they now spend 50% less time on this weekly activity, And now you can start partition, well, how much does that impact other activities that they're on? And you can say, well, maybe this healthcare manager spends a lot less time working on help support tickets because we have a better help support system, which means that they're now able to spend more time on other impact driving things inside of their company. And now you can predict how much this feature was in terms of like revenue growth for you, or and anything like that. And also user behaviors like churn, adoption. You can even say like time spent training can be like a user behavior. All of these can connect back to business metrics if you are looking at them the right way and you're smart about communicating them. We're not endorsing. Yeah, we're also not endorsing lying. This is not lying. This is literally this is why you do things, right? Your business wouldn't support any sort of feature or any sort of change to a product unless they understood, or they should at least understood, the actual outcome of that. Why do you do a redesign for any brand? It's because the outcome of this brand is tied to some sort of revenue or some sort of sometimes it gets legal. It's legal so you can avoid legal fees because your brand looks too much like someone else's brand, right? But there's always a business reason for these things. Designers need to learn to speak in business language because this is exactly how we continue to stick around. And once you understand these business terms, you understand more about your design value.
Alice, we've thrown a lot at you there. How are you feeling? I'm looking at your list, your major improvements. Do you feel like you might be able to translate those improvements into some sort of metric of value, whether it be a soft metric like behavior change or a hard metric like Tim was describing of attempting to validate some sort of number on it?
I think definitely I could translate something into a soft metric. Hard metrics, a bit more difficult just because I would have to think more about just how to turn that value into a number. I don't want to say that it's mental gymnastics, but it kind of is for me because I'm not really, I don't know, I think I'm not really great at thinking in that way of turning like this change for the better. Okay, how do I show this with a number?
I'm right there with you. Don't hear me wrong. This is not how we're traditionally taught to think. This is not traditionally like what we do. This is not even what will like show up on like a resume or like what will show up on like a job application form, right? Where they're not going to be like business, like designer requirement, can speak business ease and knows the revenue impact of like certain design decisions. Except when you get higher up into VP level design stuff, you do start to see some of that. And so I know this is it's not super intuitive. I know it's very difficult. Alice, I would like to invite you to come back. Come back when you have some of these soft things defined. We can do it on call. We'll figure out some of these business metrics for you. We'll do the full thing. We'll do the workup with you. You don't have to do this by yourself. Speaking about podcasts or books about learning this, I'm not aware of any books or podcasts necessarily that do this other than Articulating Design Decisions is a phenomenal read that Nate just put in there. You can also look at like Blue Ocean Strategy is a good place to be. And there's actually a YouTube channel or a program called design.mba. I'm going to put it in here, design.mba. You can look them up. They also speak a little bit about this. But what we're seeing actually is a wave of people who are speaking more to this idea that designers need to speak business language. And that's because like, I'm going to stop. But yes, this is the boat we're in. And Alice, I know it's like difficult. Don't let this sway you though. You've done way harder things before. I promise. Once you learn this, it'll make sense. It'll work.
Alice, I'm looking at the clock. One of the things Tim and I try to do on these calls is to not provide all the possible feedback in the world, but instead focus on what are the most important things that you need to do right now to move forward. I would argue priority number 1 is taking a look at your storytelling. Priority number 2 is, and we didn't really talk about this, but your verbosity, is that a word? You are very verbose in your terminology and vocabulary, far too much so. If you were able to run your textual content here through an AI, ChatGPT or whatever, and reduce it down to a 4th grade level, you'd be more effective at talking to your target audience. So priority number 1, work on storytelling. Priority number 2, adjust the verbiage to that of a lower academic level. And then number 3, I would argue find a way to translate some of your text into visual content. And then once those 3 things are done, I think we can then start talking about impact and metrics. Tim, any challenge with any of that?
No, I'm just getting ahead of myself. So I agree with all that. And when Nate's talking about like your verbose and storytelling elements, what he's also talking about is like these titles, which are very big titles, very big, but at the same time are not quite convincing me why I should care. Like you have prerequisite building tool for aviation training courses, but like talk about the impact here. And you do have some of this in here, right? I rewrote some of these, but like you have redesign prerequisite creation as an infrequent high impact task. High impact task, great word to include here. But I would make sure to include something to that regard where you're telling me like you did something that is high impact or you're doing something that leads to a outcome that's very desirable. But your format otherwise is very nice. And congratulations on getting the Framer sidebar to work. I don't know how much time you spent on this, but I've seen some people spend a lot of time on these Framer sidebar things and they have a lot of trouble with them. Good work on making yours work for you on your website.
Thanks. I had to look up an existing example, and truth be told, I had to hide it for mobile just because I had limited time and couldn't figure out how to make it work in mobile on time. The sticky positioning is what I think might trip up most people.
Yeah. I'll also congratulate you that I looked at your headings hierarchy and it's mostly okay. It's mostly H1 to H2s. You do have some H5s that kind of show up. But that's a different conversation for a different time. But great work on this.
Yeah,
Thanks for your time today, Alice.
I'm gonna redo my typography hierarchy. I just I don't know. I feel like I don't really have a proper setup for desktop versus mobile, and that's gotta change.
Also, apologies to anyone out
appreciate-
there for me talking so much, including Nate, just cutting Nate off, waiting for him to speak, for me to speak. And if anyone has questions about stuff like this, feel free to continue putting in the chat. We want to be here to help everyone, and we'll be here every single Friday morning. And we're also in the Discord in general, so you can just add us on the Discord if you have genuine questions.
Tim, look at Alice. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Tim, I'm looking at the clock. We are at time. This might, today's Feedback Friday might go down as the fewest amount of people that we have reviewed in a 2-hour amount of time. It looks like I think we did exactly 4 people. And I'm so sorry to all the folk on the list that weren't able to squeeze in today. We have a couple of folk left on the list. Santology, Eniola, Gloria, Brand Boost. If you're able to come back next Friday, come in early, a couple of minutes early, toss your link in the chat. You'll be first on the list. It's one of those early bird situations. Outside of that, pleasure seeing all of you. We do this every Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The recording of today's session is, do I still have it in my clipboard, do you think maybe? Is that the right link? Oh, it's almost the right link. The live recording session of today is on that YouTube channel, Design Shaped. Any last words, Tim?
Yes, I was going to say I'm hosting an Arizona Raycast meetup, which is definitely substantial. But if you want to come meet me in the Phoenix Mesa, Arizona area and talk about Raycast and get free coffee and free merch from Raycast, come to that meetup. And please, guys, bring more Framer portfolios. And if you need help setting up your Framer the right way, I will do it with you. Nate will hate it. Katie might learn a little bit, but I'll help you with it because I love helping people with Framer stuff. So
I won't hate it. I like learning. Framer will be in my future someday. My portfolio is still in WordPress for those unfamiliar and haven't talked about it yet. And I built it. Oh, we started it 15 years ago. WordPress was cool back then, I swear.
WordPress is like my special hell, honestly. Like I don't understand it at all.
I get it.
I'm supposed to go pick someone up about 5 minutes ago. So I'm gonna skedaddle out of here.
Friends, good seeing all
Bye,
your faces.
guys.
Appreciate the time. Take care, everyone.